5 developers, 5 games, 48 hours. That's right, it's time for another Art Pack Game Jam. The rules are simple. Each developer must use the pack for the majority of the assets in their game, and they can spend up to 48 hours working on the project. They don't have to be consecutive or taken all at once, you just can't spend more than 48 hours working on it. This time we are using the Polygon Nature Biomes Season 2 bundle, which you can see here in the background. Thanks to Cinti Studios for kindly providing this. This asset and many others will be up to 50% off during the Cinti Super Sale, which runs from May 9th to May 28th. Check out the link in the description to see the savings. With that said, let's just jump straight into it, starting with Qubic.
Hey guys, Qubic here. I'm a small game dev YouTuber, and I make silly little projects and put them on my YouTube channel. Anyway, this is what I did for this game jam. So, first things first. I built a little camera to go and fly around through these worlds, as you can see, and just have a look at what I had to work with in these Cinti assets. So, when I had a look through, I saw, the different features, and the plan was to weigh them up and see what I got. There was all sorts of ideas, from fossil excavation, fishing games, even some climbing games. But in the end, as you can see, I'm pretty well versed in VR, so I figured why not just try making a VR game in this 48 hours and see how far I get. Especially considering that these worlds are perfectly suited for it. Anyway, so I decided that, I'll make a quick VR controller and then just walk through the demo environments and see what game I can make using the environments. Let's go and have a look. Alright, so this is my VR world so far. So what I've just done is I've just implemented a simple basic VR. Got these little balls to indicate where my hands are. And I'm just going to give these worlds another quick look, seeing what they look like in VR, and seeing which one I'd like to already continue this VR project with. Alright, let's have a quick look at the others. Alright, so here we are in the arid desert environment. Looks pretty good. Here's base camp and the obelisk. Now, I'm thinking no matter what I want to do, I definitely want to do something with the obelisk. Let's move on to the next. Alright, so here I am in the enchanted forest. There's a lot of things here. This is a bit more maze-like compared to the other ones. The other ones were very open. The portal. This is already a game and story right here. Try to close the portal or open the portal. But yeah, there's already a full story here. Alright, hey everyone. So, as you can see, I finished the game here. I was originally going to add like a whole tutorial area here, mostly just telling you about the game and everything, but I just ran out of time. I couldn't spend the entire 48 hours like I had planned, and I lost a lot of time trying to get this VR system to work. So anyway, well, here you go. As you can see, I've got these polygon pinecone hands here, but I kind of like it because it kind of looks like you're grabbing things, which is kind of the core mechanic of this entire game. Anyway, you spawn right here, and the whole story is that you need to find the portal to escape, but the portal needs crystals to power it, and obviously there's water there, so you can't cross it, so therefore you need to find something that'll absorb water and grow a bridge. So it'll be about at this point where in your travels you find this mushroom cave, which is unique from all the other mushrooms you see, so you'll probably want to explore it and see what's inside there. And now what I've done is I've put these stack of mushroom caps here. They look dried out and shriveled out, so when you pick them up, you think, oh, what can I do with these? And well, obviously the plan is that you throw them into the water to make a bridge. It's probably not very obvious, but that is the idea. So hopefully you take it here, and you can grow yourself a mushroom bridge. Now we'll go mine some diamonds. Now there's already one crystal down here which you can use, and this crystal will be good enough to power the portal, but I've made a small little secret, so you'll want to have at least 2 of them. In which case, pickaxe, and just break off a little diamond. And yeah, very cool. So now you need to take these diamonds and find a portal so you can power them. Now one thing I do wish is that I added more sound effects that would make the place really come to life. but unfortunately we just ran out of time, so I just had to focus on the core mechanics, which is the VR experience. Pretty happy with how it turned out, but yeah, there definitely could be some improvement for next time. So it'll be at this point where you can see the obelisk, and hopefully you've put 2 and 2 together that it needs the crystal, and that will be the end of the game. Anyway, so use the first crystal. Now this is just a box collider, so as soon as it interacts, it'll spawn the portal. And just like that, you've won basically. You've got your escape portal and everything, but one thing you'll notice, when you walk through it, as you'll see, you get teleported through there so long as you're holding another crystal. And now, you're in the Alpine environment. Alright, so this is my game for this game jam. I just want to thank Dan for inviting me to participate, and thank Cinti for providing us with this asset pack. Very cool. Alright guys, catch you later.
Hi, I'm Christina from the channel ChristinaCreatesGames, and this is my first 48-hour game jam. I had always wanted to be good at landscape design, but never took the time to actually reach that goal. So with this jam being all about that, awesome, I have so much I want to learn and try. You'll find the whole devlog on my channel, so let's focus on landscaping here. My initial inspiration came from the preview images in the Cinti store, especially this one looking down on a winding mountain trail. I loved hiking in the mountains as a child, and one thing was just the best on every hike I went on: the lifts. Seeing the landscape from above, just like in this scene, had always felt magical to me. So when I checked what was in the biomes pack, I had to realize if I don't create a lift myself, I wouldn't have one for my project, which would be a bummer. Ignoring the fact that I had no clue as to what to actually do with it, and procrastinating heavily on coming up with an idea for gameplay, I started up Blender and modeled one. 1.5 hours later, I had my finished lift system and was ready to start up Unity and start thinking about how to put it to use. On my backwards way to a game idea, I started with landscape design. I realized I would need some verticality because a lift is essentially a shortcut for crossing difficult terrain. As I learned to use and experiment with the terrain tool, I thought about what I could do with a landscape, a lift, and an inventory and quest system I had borrowed from a previous project. Okay, so let's focus on the basics. Lifts only need 2 stations, one on the mountain and one on the bottom. Let's say the lift is broken and the player starts at the opposite end. We could give her the quest to repair it, providing a reason to travel. But what about the way down to reach the lift? I dotted my mountain with more diverse different landscapes, thinking about how to use these areas. I had the theme of exploration in mind, so I tried my hand at creating line of sights, guiding the player through the terrain and giving cool views across the landscapes or towards special destinations. Yes, landscaping took up the vast majority of my development time. Landscaping had also the added effect of learning about the mountain in the first place, so when I came back to which systems I wanted to use, picking the quest one was an easy choice. Implementing that, on the other hand, was rough. I talk more about it in my devlog, but to sum it up, write documentation for your systems, guys. But hey, in the end I had quests guiding the player on her way down the mountain. Awesome! Something about my scenery nagged at me after implementing quests though. I could just disable everything but the base terrain and quest givers at this point, and this game would be way less pretty but still basically the same. So that's when I did something stupid and kinda broke the theme of the jam. Sorry Dan, but I placed a goat inside my game. And it looked cute. And it made me realize I had built the perfect base for a photography game. My landscape was already all about pretty areas and lines of sight. I had placed the majority of trees, stones and plants by hand. Yes, really, even after learning how to use the tree and decoration settings inside the terrain tool. I designed lookouts and tiny places, telling a little bit of a story. This project didn't need an inventory. It needed a photo camera. Luckily, it didn't take too long to get the basic functionality set up, though I learned quite a bit about Cinemachine and accessibility along the way. I then sprinkled some more animals across the landscape because I sometimes have a hard time stopping myself. In my defense, by adding animals, the landscape itself became much more important. I suddenly couldn't disable it anymore and call it the same game. By trying to frame objects, whether they were scenery or animals, just right, the player had to take the surrounding area into account much more for that perfect shot. And now, while on her hike down the mountain, the player had reason to explore and experience the landscape instead of making a beeline from one quest giver to the next. I uploaded the project to itch with about 4 hours to spare before the deadline, and honestly being proud of what I had been able to cobble together in a week. I hope you'll give it a try and let me know if you did, please.
Hi there, I'm Nivmiz and I like to make games. When I first got the asset pack from Dan, I started by looking over the pre-made scenes to try to get ideas. And I came up with some pretty interesting ones, like a survival game, a hunting simulator, some sort of management game, and more. But none of these were quite unique enough, and I wanted to avoid making something generic, because I feel that's pretty easy to fall into when you're limited to one art pack. Finally, when looking over these icicle models, I was just rotating them around and playing with them until I ended up with this monstrosity, completely by accident. I instantly decided that this would be a great concept for a horror game. Being chased by this hellspawn would be absolutely terrifying. So I set up a first-person character controller with an asset I have, and I started combing through the assets in the pack to see if I could come up with a good setting for the game. A frozen cave came to mind. You'd be trapped in this ice cave with the monster, and you'd have to find some collectibles. I was pretty inspired by a game called Iron Lung with this. There, you're trapped in a submarine, collecting photos of sea objects with some terrifying creature lurking out in the water. Here, you'd be collecting some artifacts, and you'll keep hearing and seeing hints that you're not alone. I then started working on the level design. I made a block out of the cave and used some interesting and mysterious props that I found in the asset pack to make the artifacts for the player to find. I also added a mini-map because I made the game non-linear, and I found that the cave system was a little too easy to get lost in. I began decorating the cave with ice blocks and rocks, and this was by far the most time-consuming part in the entire development process. Since I didn't have to make any art, basically all I had to do was level design and programming, and I purposefully chose a concept that didn't have a lot of complex mechanics. The entire project has less than 250 lines of code. Around this time, I lowered the resolution of the game so I could check its performance, and I noticed that the slight blurry and pixelated graphics looked really cool with the dark atmosphere I was going with. I decided to try a technique to pixelate the entire screen without it looking muddy like it would at a low resolution, and lo and behold, it looks awesome. I think it gives the game a crunchy and dark feel that it doesn't really have with a sharp resolution. A bonus is that it's an interesting use of the pre-made assets. I usually don't like just using the assets I get as they are. Instead, I add effects or shaders to them to make them look unique, like here. I finished up the game by making the ending. I don't want to spoil it in case you guys want to try it out, but I think I managed to make something pretty surprising and scary. If you play it, let me know in the comments. Overall, I'm really happy with how the game ended up. I was on vacation while working on the project, so I didn't actually get to spend the full 48 hours on it, and I might have been able to add more features or quality of life stuff to it under different circumstances. But I had a lot of fun with the project, and I think the game is pretty fun. If you like what you see, go check out my YouTube channel, Nivmiz. I just finished my first commercial game, so I'll be making videos about more miscellaneous projects like this over there. See ya!
Hi, I'm Outer, a 17-year-old game developer, and my idea is you decorate an environment by placing down different decorations. I want to make sure the idea is simple, that way I can complete it in the 48-hour time limit, so if I run into any complications, I won't have any trouble dealing with them. Ready with an idea, it's time to open up the assets in Godot. Which is an issue because the assets were actually made for Unity and Unreal. So already I'm running into issues. How am I supposed to use assets that weren't even made for the game engine that I'm using? Luckily for me, there's open source projects that can convert Unity assets into a Godot usable form. Took a little bit to get that working, and after it finished, the shaders were broken. I haven't even started on the gameplay, and I'm already running into issues. This does not bode well. After about 3 hours of shader programming, the assets were finally working in the game. It's really hard to deal with issues like this right at the start, but after getting over it, it's a lot easier to work. But here's the thing, it's already the end of the first day, and I haven't even started on the gameplay. I'm in high school, and I've got finals to study for, so I don't know if I'll be able to use all the 48 hours. So I gotta work extra hard. For the basic mechanics of just selecting random decorations and placing them down, which were surprisingly really easy, I already finished them in only a few hours. The game is kind of already done mechanically. Okay, so the idea might have been a bit too simple. So the game right now is only made of something called intrinsic motivation, which is where the player plays for the sake of playing. Think of creativity, like maybe Minecraft. But My game is lacking extrinsic motivation, which is like point rewards for actually playing the game. Another game called Islanders also does this by giving you coins when you place down buildings. This wasn't too difficult to implement either, and already made the game a lot more interesting. Now it seemed like smooth sailing for here. I mean, the gameplay's already in, it's time for polishing, but there were still some nasty bugs to deal with. One of them was after placing enough decorations, the lighting would just break, but it wasn't too difficult. I just had too many lights in this scene. Time for polishing. There's a few ways you can polish the game: sound effects, particle effects, but the main thing that's just an easy, free +10 polish is camera movement. Just by adding a little bit of camera movement that reacts to the mouse, it changes the game from feeling very static to really dynamic. But I also added sound effects like this hit sound effect and some particle effects that play when the decorations land. It's finally time to upgrade the visuals. One thing I found really effective was adding lights to the different decorations because it added a lot of color to the scene. A lot of people say Godot isn't really powerful graphically, but it has a lot of really cool features. I used the voxel GI to add some bounce lighting around the main areas, and it has a really cool environment node which has like volumetric lighting and a cool skybox. I've never actually made a 3D game in Godot, so having these tools really helped out. I am a little worried that the performance isn't the best, but it's running fine on my machine, so I hope that it's at least runnable for most people. After finishing the game, I wish I had spent more time on it. I only really got to use 24 hours out of the 48, so I guess it's good that I planned for that, but I still call it a success. It's pretty chill, which was the goal, and it's always fun to make a game in a week. But that's all the time I got. I'm Outer, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so first off, I really need to apologise to outercloud. Cinti's assets do actually work with Godot due to Cinti providing the source files for all of their projects. I just forgot to upload the source files when I shared them with Outer. Regardless, it was cool to see there's stuff out there for making the transition from Unity to Godot less painful, and I think he still got a really cool project out of it in the end as well. But yeah, apologies for that. But anyway, on with my part then. So, despite being the one to organise this, I really struggled to actually find the time to fit this in. First, I was away in London showcasing a game, and I was hard at work on my current project, Revelocity, and I also released this web app called Steam Sale, which analyses Steam reviews and gives a summary of what people are saying about the game. Anyway, it was my turn to look at the pack, see what there is, and get inspired. I actually struggled off the bat here, as there's not as many specific props in the nature kit. They are specifically designed for environment design and to work alongside the other Cinti packs as well. But this is supposed to be a challenge after all. I decided to open a new scene in Unity and start dragging assets in to get a better look at them, and I really liked these sign seat looking props, so I decided to start there. While I tried to think up a gameplay loop, I thought I'd work on figuring out Unity's terrain system, which I don't actually have a lot of practice with, and as I got more used to it, I thought it ended up being quite a lot of fun to use, despite some frustrations with it. I had decided by this point to do a little walking simulator type thing where you need to interact with some machines to power up a final machine. I figured a fun little challenge to myself was to try to recreate the stratagem input mechanic from Helldivers 2, so I got to work figuring out how that would work. Once I got that working, I then went back to the terrain. I built a hill area and placed a big satellite dish on top of it, which would be the final machine that the player needs to activate. The other two machines are the wind farm and some solar panels. Once these are activated, you can finally turn on the dish. Because I'd been building up this snow environment, I decided to have a particle effect that follows the player and makes it seem as though it's snowing kind of everywhere they go. It was then time to start trying to find some sound effects to make the world feel a little bit more alive. From bird sound as you're exploring the environment, to machinery sounds for when you turn the machines on. I then made some small animations for the machines, such as the solar panels turning to face upward once you've interacted with the machine, and for the wind turbines starting to spin. All the time I was working on this, I kept thinking just how boring this core loop actually was, and I wanted to do just something else to spice it up ever so slightly. And I figured because it's cold, maybe you need to pick up some wood to use to start some campfires, and that generates warmth, so I quickly added this in at the end. Overall, the game isn't very fun, and there's no finish condition other than you turn on the final machine, but nothing happens when you do, because I ran out of time working on this. I'd say out of the 48 hours I was allowed to use, I did only manage to use about 12 to 16 of them. I took the hours consecutively in the space of 2 days, as that's all I could fit in. I did still get a lot out of doing this though, even if I'm not happy with the final product. I am now more comfortable with Unity's terrain system, and it's got me excited to work on some 3D projects in the future. Though I do need to finish my current 2D game, Riverlocity, which you can wishlist on Steam. I also think the computer input system, that would make for a good tutorial too. If you want to see that, let me know down below. Thanks again to Cinti for providing the kit for us to use. Be sure to shop the Cinti Super Sale, that was really hard to say, up until May 28th for big savings on this pack and others like it. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you want to check out these games for yourself, feel free to do so. The links are in the description below to the itch.io pages for each game. The links to all of the other devs' channels are also in the description below as well. Make sure you go check them out and see what other content they've been up to. Thanks again to the devs that took part in this. I know it's a lot of work and some awesome stuff was produced, and yeah, just thanks a lot for taking part. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!